Welcome to the Health Deli, your local stop for a fresh take on community health topics. Come on in, grab a number, and let the guys behind the counter, Mark, Ben, and Mike, tell you about today's specials. Welcome to the Health Deli. I am your host today, Mark Young, and with me today I have my esteemed colleague,
Hola.
Dr. Mike Klepser.
Hola.
How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good.
Wonderful, thank you.
How's the sundries department?
Sundries are sunderific.
Good. I also have with us today Andrew Tingley from Fair State Digital Production and Design, something or other.
Television and digital media production.
There you go.
And we're here with Mark Young, blubbering buffoon.
Hey, come on now, come on. One person we're missing though, Ben.
Oh, it's blubbering buffoon made you think of Ben?
No, of course not. No. But
I'm going to tell him you said that.
no, because he would have backed me up and keeps you in check. That's what made me think of it. So
yeah,
we need him back. It's been a while. He's had an extended absence. So
yeah,
soon.
I decided, for those of you watching this, Mark looked really smart with a pen in his hand.
Oh,
and
so you have one now?
I decided to take one out.
Is that a stylus?
No, yeah, it goes for my iPad. But
So
I
it
thought
doesn't actually even write on the paper?
No.
Nice.
I just thought it'd make me look smarter, like I'm pretending to write notes or make me look like I'm interested in what you're saying.
That's the first mistake you made today. So today's topic, how to live to be 100 plus years old. So how to live as long as you have, at least.
Yeah, you don't have to be fast. You just have to be able to outrun the person you're with.
Oh, okay.
And that's because when the dinosaurs attacked, they couldn't run that fast.
You kicked your friend in the knee and took off running?
Oh, yeah, push him right down.
Yeah.
I didn't, friends, you can get another one.
Nice. Before we get into that, though.
My friends?
No, you don't have any friends.
Okay.
Free samples. What have you been working on?
So I've been working on a variety of topics. One, looking at how our lifestyles, our adherence to medications and stuff like that keeps us healthy, not only with the diseases that they're intended to treat, but also keeps us from having to get antibiotics. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big thing, this whole outpatient antibiotic stewardship stuff. The other thing I'm working on are questions from older individuals, kind of building on the topics that we had in the past.
So I've been working on a couple things. Episode on weird bodily functions. I know you're looking forward to that one. So farting, belching, kind of the purpose of those things.
Are we having your kids out with this one?
We could.
Yours and Andrew's and my kids come out and
we could.
We'll just see who makes a noise and go, well, you want to know where that came from, Jimmy?
It's not just, that hang down thing in the back of your throat, the uvula. What does it do? Nobody knows. So I'm working on an episode about that, and then one about men's health. So I know everyone wants to hear about your prostate. We have to talk about it every week, or every 2 weeks. So one more about men's health, related and not related to Mike's prostate.
All right.
So this episode, though, how to live to be 100. So I'm going to just go right out of the gate with it. Do you just want to know where the fountain of youth is? I can tell you.
Yes.
Go ahead and tell us.
Well, I don't know. So Ponce,
I was hoping there was more to this than that.
Clickbait.
No, that was clickbait. And so I did a lot of research for this episode with this idea that I was going to learn something that really would help me to live longer. And I think I did. But what the biggest thing I learned is that it's not one single thing, unfortunately. So there's a ton of factors that contribute to people's longevity. So,
social determinants of health.
There's just so many things. We're gonna get into those things, and kind of what it looks like. Those people that live to be really old. We're gonna go through some case reports. We're gonna talk about what they did.
George Burns smoked a cigar and drank bourbon or something.
He was a
every
birthday
day.
buddy of mine. We were born on the same day, obviously different years, but.
He was born about 20 years after I was.
I think he lived over 100.
He did. And again, they always asked him, George, what's your secret to life? Smoke a cigar every day.
Yeah. So we'll find. Maybe that's the key. I highly doubt it. So a little bit about the incidence of people to make it to 100 plus. So in 2021, there were about 89,000 centenarians. That's the term for people who live to be 100 years old, which equates to about 0.027% of the U.S. population. So not very many percentage-wise. But when you think about it, 90,000 in the United States, that's a decent-sized city of people about your age.
Wow, I should find that place. I mean, pick up
You
some
really
friends.
should. Yeah, you really should.
And so, but that's just the United States.
Yes.
And we have a relatively low life expectancy compared to other countries.
We're going to get into that.
Ooh.
Yeah, we are going to get into that.
All right.
So step one, move
Yes.
Move.
Now,
Where do you want me to move
to a different country.
Okay.
well, maybe not. So we'll talk. Maybe it's just a different part of this country. So
Is that the part where you're not living?
well, yes, actually.
So move
I
away
am
from
not in
Mark.
a zone that would suggest I would live to be really, really old.
Okay.
But to get to 110, so now you're talking about what we call super centenarians. Only about 150 to 600 people in the entire world are that old right now and living. So now you're talking about a significantly small number of people.
So their
that make it to
superpower, you call them super centenarians.
super centenarians.
That means their superpower is getting old.
Well, yeah, breathing, continuing to exist.
Continuing to breathe.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's get into a little guessing game. I love these guessing games. So by country, what do you think the highest life expectancy is? So which country do you think, if you live there, you're
Japan.
All right.
It always seems like it's Japan. That's my guess.
Japan?
Yeah.
Andrew, guess?
Greece.
Greece. So you're both wrong. But you're both but those are good. Those are good
Mediterranean
guesses.
diet. That's what I was.
Number one is Hong Kong.
Hong Kong? Are you bleeping kidding me?
No,
That
80.
joint?
But you're talking. I mean, you're splitting hairs at the top end. So you're talking 85.83 years. Japan 84.95. Singapore, so 84.27. Switzerland 84.38. I'm trying to find Greece. I know it's here. I can't find it right now,
So
but
it's
I know it's in the top 20 or so.
So it's crazy to me that some of your top, like at least the top three that you read off, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, all relatively close in proximity when you think of the world.
Exactly right.
So it makes you wonder, okay, is there something going on in the environment? I'm now fixated on social determinants of health.
Yeah.
Is it, proximity to the equator?
Is it diet?
Right. Yeah. Is
Weather
it diet,
patterns,
genetics?
pollution? There's a lot of factors. So Greece comes in at 34 with a life expectancy of 82. So now, where do you think the United States falls on this list? There's 200 countries.
Near the
Yeah,
bottom.
197.
I'll say in the 120s.
Not that bad. 47. So 79.74. But
And
not.
I guess some of these things take in like war and poverty. So I can see
Yes,
that. I mean,
exactly. So when you look at the end, there's some African nations on there that are in a state of war right now, and the life expectancy is as low as 55.
wow.
South Sudan, Somalia, Central African Republic. Not so much as a health issue, but more of a war violence kind of issue, unfortunately. So, but the United States has a lot of room to improve. 47 is not great for
No, and we
country
spend a
that
lot of
touts
money on
herself.
trying to keep people healthy.
And that's one of the problems in this research that I was doing, is that the focus in the United States is on treating disease. It's not on preventing disease. So there's not as much money, not as much flash in preventing a problem as there is treating a problem. So our healthcare system is very much focused on treating,
We're screwed up.
not preventing.
So the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure
It really is.
thing.
Yeah, it really is. So there's some other factors. So geography we talked about is one. Gender is another one. So women live about 6 years longer on average in the United States. And
6 years?
yes, I was surprised by that as well. I thought it was maybe a year or two.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But it is, and it's widening. In the last 10 years, it's widened. So I think we could do a whole nother episode probably just
I
about
probably
that.
should not be on that episode because I will say things that will have my wife probably shorten my life expectancy.
Yeah. I think traditionally there was an idea that men were disproportionately affected by war because of draft policies, things like that. But now really that's been taken out of the equation, and we as men are still living shorter lives than females.
And, I know part of that because it's all-cause mortality. And so that used to be, men in inner cities would join gangs, violence, death.
More likely to smoke.
And more likely to smoke, drink. They had more dangerous jobs.
Drugs.
And stuff like that.
But even corrected for that, there is still like this 5 to 6 year difference in life expectancy. Wow. Yeah. So another thing.
We got hosed.
Yeah. Medically, there's a few things that contribute to super longevity, so 100 years plus. And one of those things is height. So the average height of someone reaching 100 years old is only 60 inches tall.
Convert it. Give me feet.
5 feet.
5 foot tall?
5 foot tall. So the average height.
What did they start out at?
Well,
because people shrink when they get older.
So that is true as well. But even if you look at their height at like 60 years old, they still are significantly shorter. So in Okinawa, Japan, that has the highest concentration of 100 plus year olds in the world. And the average male height of a 100-year-old is 58 inches. And they looked at the average male height, so less than 5 feet. They looked at the average male height of a 73-year-old in Okinawa, and that was about 63 inches. So about 4 to 5 inches taller. So kind of
I should tell my mom that it's good that she's short because she'll probably live forever.
Longer. So there's a lot of kind of theories on why this is. It's probably a whole bunch of different, a whole bunch of factors together. But one of the kind of interesting ones is that smaller bodies have less cells. So less risk of cancer because they have less cells dividing. So if you have, 1 million less cells in your body, you're a little bit less likely to have cancer because when those cells divide, they're going to have a chance every time.
I never thought about that.
The number of cells in your body.
Just because you're shorter, that means you have less cells. So the probability of you having cancerous cells is less because you just have fewer cells.
Kind of
That's
interesting.
crazy.
Another reason potentially could be that the smaller folks need less cardiac output.
And like you freakishly tall people have to pump blood to higher
not only
levels
higher,
against gravity.
but our vasculature is longer. So our vascular resistance is just generally higher because it has to go further in through our veins and arteries. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess that whole trip, I mean, what you take into the veins, the arteries, the capillaries, if we stretched all of your circulatory system out, it would be substantially longer than mine. And I'm imagining our hearts are about, let's be honest, I have a huge heart. That's what people tell me.
You have no heart.
Okay. I got just a machine pumping. But the hearts are probably about the same size. And so, you keep working these hearts. The one that has to work harder is probably not going to.
Yeah. Another one is the fact that they have shorter limbs, so shorter arms and legs, present a better mechanical advantage when moving. So that leads to decreased levels of inflammation. So a person who has to lift, a certain amount of weight, if it's the same amount of weight, a person with a shorter arm is going to have a little bit better mechanical advantage.
Leverage.
A little bit better leverage, yeah. All of these things taken together might help a little bit. Another factor theory is that smaller bodies have a better, or are easier, I guess, to heat, which leads to lower metabolic rates to maintain normal temperature, if that makes sense. So I don't know. No one, again, there's no like smoking gun to say this is why short people tend to live a little bit longer.
I just always wanted to be tall, but now I don't care anymore.
Yeah. Actually, in my research, do you know what the ideal male height in the United States is? If you just ask someone, they asked like 1,000 people, what's the ideal male height? Any idea?
No, I did look up average height the other day, but what's
the ideal was 6 feet 2 inches.
Oh, weird.
Which is way higher than average.
Huh.
So I don't know.
That's for like
here or there.
People who are attractive and stuff, or like what was that? What was surrounding that?
I think they asked 100 men or 1,000 men and 1,000 women. I can't remember the exact details, but both of them were about 6 feet 2 is what they could wish.
So culturally, we look up to tall men.
We do look up to tall men, but I'm bumching. Moving along though, they're, as far as like disease patterns for people that have lived 100 plus, they actually have similar incidence of hypertension and GI disease, but much, much lower rates of diabetes and atherosclerosis. So, believe it or not, they actually are just as likely to have high blood pressure, but they have much, much, much lower rates of diabetes and cholesterol and plaques in the veins. And then genetics plays a huge role here. And I'm not a geneticist, but there is this thing called the HLA-DR1 gene, which plays a role in inflammation, actually preventing inflammation in our body. And it also helps the body correctly distinguish between invaders, so infections, versus our own cells. And this this gene is expressed in a much higher rate in people who live to be 100 or more. So there is a genetic component. If you have this particular gene, the HLA-DR1, I shouldn't say you're more likely to live to 100. People who live to be 100 have a much higher rate of having this gene.
Having it or expressing it?
Expressing it.
Okay, so again,
yes.
It's a difference in your
Yes.
genes. You can have a gene, and if it's not expressed, it means nothing. If
Right.
it's being expressed, then it's doing something.
Yes.
So should I go out and get genetic testing to see if I'm going to live? Because then I have to save more money.
You can't change it. So,
But if I
really-
have it, then I know it.
well,
And
you can't say
what's the predictive value of this thing?
well, and that's to be determined, because you can't say that you're going to live longer because you have the gene. We just know that people who have lived a long time have the gene expressed.
Okay.
So,
Because again, death is associated with a variety of other things as well. So you could
Exactly.
still
right. It's not
Catastrophic.
it's not a smoking gun by any means. The
a
other
smoking gun would mean that they
smoking
dying
is bad for you.
Well, yeah. So wouldn't it be a non-smoking gun?
It's not
because
a-
it's not a yeah. Give me
know what you call it.
give me some sort of saying that indicates that it's a happy thing there.
A
Because
happy
smoking gun is like I just shot you with the gun and now it's smoking and
True,
I'm guilty.
we need to add that to laundry list to get rid of.
Why?
Smoking gun. I don't know.
Because nobody smokes a gun.
True. You couldn't find a pipe big enough to fit it in. So actually, a lot of people though, a lot of patients I've noticed say like, my genetics, I'm doomed. I might as well smoke because I have bad genetics. I might as well blah because of my genetics. Well, actually genetics play about 25% of the role in your longevity. So
Really?
yeah,
So just because your parents live a long time doesn't mean you're going to.
it helps. It helps, but it's not the whole story. I mean, the choices we make play the biggest role.
You make a lot of bad choices.
Yes, you're right. I do. Well, I shouldn't say that. A few.
No,
one hanging out with you.
I mean, that's a killer right there, that choice.
Yeah. So, have you heard of these things called the blue zones? We talked about geography and it kind of matters where you live. You ever heard of the term, the blue zones?
Well, I get there like whenever my football team loses, I go into a blue zone and just get really depressed and down.
I thought you were talking about Honolulu Blue and the Detroit Lions.
Well, yeah, but when they lose, I get
You get
really
blue.
blues. I
So
get the blues.
there's a popular documentary on Netflix right now, and it's a book by Dan Bettner, and it's called like Secrets of the Blue Zones or something. And there was a couple of researchers that did a fair amount of research around Sardinia, Italy, which is an island off the coast of Italy, Sardinia. And what they did is they looked at people who lived to be 100 years old, where they lived on the island, and they put a blue dot. And then as they developed their research, there were clusters of these blue dots, and those were called blue zones. And they looked at those areas and said, what's different about this area that makes people live longer? And they were attempting to kind of unlock the secret of the fountain of youth, right? What are these people doing that makes them live longer? And to be honest, they actually found 5 different areas of the world where people live significantly longer. And each of these areas kind of have different factors. Some have some overlap, and we're just going to kind of work through that.
Before you give those people, let's make them think about it for a minute. Why don't you give us a healthy minute to get people to think where these blue zones might be and see if they can think about it. Look at me.
So let's do a healthy minute about sunscreen, because a lot of these are near the equator where they're going to see a lot of sun. So Let's pause for the Healthy Minute, brought to you by the Winery at Young Farms. Today's Healthy Minute is wear sunscreen. Sunscreen isn't just a cosmetic product, it's a powerful shield against the harmful effects of ultraviolet rays from the sun. Prolonged exposure to these rays can lead to premature aging, sunburn, and more importantly, an increased risk of skin cancer. By applying sunscreen regularly, you create a protective barrier that helps prevent sunburn, reduces the risk of skin cancer, and minimizes the development of fine lines and wrinkles. Sunscreen is a simple yet effective way to prioritize your long-term skin health. Whether you're heading to the beach, going for a walk, or simply spending time outdoors, making sunscreen application a non-negotiable part of your routine. Look for a broad-spectrum sunscreen with at least SPF 30, and don't forget to reapply it every 2 hours, especially if you're swimming or sweating. Remember, caring for your skin today is an investment in a healthier future. Let's make sun protection a habit and ensure our skin stays protected against the sun's potentially harmful effects. That was the Healthy Minute, brought to you by the Winery at Young Farms in Mecosta, Michigan. Please visit www.thewineryatyoungfarms.com for more information. Now, back to the Health Deli.
Boom, chicka, boom, healthy, 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 healthy. All right, excellent. Yeah, because if I get old, I want to have good-looking skin. Because let's face it, I'll probably outlive my wife, and I'll need to be looking for some ladies.
Yeah. Now, actually, so that's a good point. Before we talk about these blue zones, is they did correct for the fact that generally people move to warm climates as they age.
Why would they do that?
Well, just to get more sunshine. So
why?
I
want to move to Alaska. Just fabulous, dark. 24 hours a day.
You would like that?
Oh,
you should listen to the seasonal affective disorder episode.
Would I be happier if there was less sunlight?
No, gosh, no.
Are you sure? Because
maybe
darkness
would.
Makes me happy.
It does.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
You're not right. So a couple of things though that were across all these blue zones that kind of rose to the top.
Can we do it in like a list? Like Letterman's top
three. What do I have? I only have really three.
Well, you got five, don't you?
No, I have more than that. Yeah, I have a few. So
did you write this, or did somebody else write it for you?
Well, I wrote it. No, I wrote it. So fewer cardiovascular risk factors, things like smoking. They had a low incidence of smoking, which you could imagine. They had lower incidences of caffeine and alcohol intake as well. Diet. Generally, across all of the zones, they had very, very little red meat, lots of fruits and vegetables, and small portion sizes. And then exercise, they generally exercised at an amount that was consistent throughout their lifespan. So they didn't overexert themselves to the point where they were creating inflammation. But they didn't have the typical retirement model that we have here in the United States, where we work really hard until we're 65 and then we essentially do nothing. So there's this idea, I think.
I've been doing nothing since.
That's your whole life.
Yeah. So just keep on doing nothing.
But I think the cultural model is in the United States, like, I'm going to bust it. I'm going to work really hard. And then when I get to a certain age, I'm going to relax. And in all of these blue zones, that's just not the cultural model. The model is they continue to do, maybe at a lesser pace, but they continue to work throughout their life.
Okay.
So, but not to a point where they're creating inflammation and kind of wearing out their body. So they're not going to the gym, these people. And then stress, a little bit like the exercise, not too much, not too little. So they have certain amounts of stress. They're engaged and they understand what's going around them, and they have a lot of social connections.
I'm out.
But they don't have massive amounts of kind of boiler room kind of stress, like you would think with an office job. Those kinds of stress. And then they have usually a faith community around them. So that could be a family, very close-knit family, could be church, something like that, where they have this community around them. So they're not isolated. They're generally not in nursing homes. They're actually being cared for with family. So family or faith community.
Okay.
So where are they? And this is Dan Bettner's kind of list of where you're most likely to make it to 100.
How about if we'll go and I'll read the name and then
Yes.
you'll give the explanation.
I like it. I like
All
it.
right,
Go for it. So go for number one.
All right, number one, Okinawa, Japan.
Yes. So in Okinawa, they have almost entirely plant-based diet. So very little red meat. And then they have that cultural expectation to remain active throughout your whole life. Also interesting, they actually have a saying, and I'm not even going to try to say it in Japanese, but it's a saying that they usually say when they're eating, and it roughly translated means stop when you're 80% full. So they have very small portion size. Actually, in Okinawa, they consume only about 75% as many calories as an average person in Japan, which is much less than an average person in the United States. So very small portion sizes, and it's lots of fruits and vegetables.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, number two.
Number two.
Sardinia, Italy.
Yeah. So this one, a little bit different. The terrain there is very hilly. And it's a very old island, and there's not a lot of cars there, even now in present day. So to get around, they actually have to walk up and down a lot of hills. So they actually measured this in this study about how much they had to walk in the incline, and how basically just being in that city, or that island, you have to walk on an incline a lot. So they have more exercise just by being there. The other thing that's interesting about Sardinia is it has very little genetic diversity. 75% of the people living in the biggest city there can trace their ancestry back to just 16 original men and women. So there's a genetic component there that they're studying still. They don't know exactly, though, the gene sequence. There's a whole bunch of genes that they're working through to see kind of which might be responsible.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, number three.
Dun, dun, dun.
Loma Linda, California.
Weird. You never would have thought
No.
that there would be a United States blue zone.
Especially someplace in California.
I know. So it's in California, but this has to do the town itself was founded by a Seventh-day Adventist community, which is a Christian faith that has a fairly regimented ideas around diet and exercise and community. So no red meat, no alcohol, no caffeine, no nicotine. There's a real importance in the culture placed on service and observance of the Sabbath. So they actually observe the Sabbath on Saturday. It's from Friday night at sundown until probably Saturday at sundown or through Saturday. Very strict observance. They all come back to family. They don't do any work. And then their idea is that they should serve others throughout their life. So they keep active in a lot of volunteerism and things like that.
Okay.
So lots of factors there. But yeah, right in California.
See, I wouldn't have thought that.
Me either.
All right, number four. Nicoya, Costa Rica.
Yes. So this is an area that's actually very impoverished. So they don't have access to a lot of the things that the developed world does. But what they do is they grow and process their own food. So they eat very little unprocessed food. So because they're growing their own food and literally grinding their corn and beans by hand, that increases the amount of exercise, no processed food. And then they have very, very, very strong social connections where families will live in clusters throughout their entire life. There is also an expectation to keep working until death. And then because Costa Rica is not a very rich nation, they have socialized medicine, but they have a real focus on preventative care instead of curative care. So completely opposite of the United States. So if you have a disease state that requires intervention like cancer or something like that, there's not a lot of treatment options in this country. Unfortunately, you're not going to get cutting edge therapy, but every single citizen is assigned, I can't remember exactly the term, but it's like a medical ambassador that will come to you at least once a year. It's not a physician. It's just basically someone who cares, but they can give you vaccines. They can talk to you about risk factors. They can talk to you about diet. So there's a major shift to prevention in that country. versus curative care.
See, I wish we did more of that here. I wish we had more prevention here and didn't react.
Right.
All right. Number 5, Icaria, Greece.
Yes. So this is an island. I didn't know this, but it's an island named for Icarus. And supposedly Icarus, I think that Icarus flew too close to the sun. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I don't know. And he fell in the ocean here next to this island. So
Really?
yeah, that's the
Hope
lore.
he didn't hurt anyone.
But here, residents follow a Mediterranean diet. So again, very little red meat. They also drink a form of a strong red wine that is only available or only grown there on that island. It's also, the island is very isolated and the residents are mostly self-sufficient, so not a lot of processed food. And again, their public healthcare system has this prevention of disease rather than curative care. The interesting thing about this is that, oops, I actually misplaced this note, is that men are actually more likely to live longer lives there. So men and women roughly live the same lifespan on that island, which is interesting because really throughout the world, men don't live as long as women. So there's something there. I don't know what it is. Nobody really knows. But
So this is interesting because you've listed all these reasons, and the factors and how these people work. There's very little similarities.
yeah,
In these groups, with respect to some, there might be genetics, some work hard, some are impoverished.
mm-hmm.
But the one thing that I heard in a number of places, at least, was a balance, getting some rest, being with family, and preventative care.
Yep. Preventative care, strong social interactions. Yep. And this idea of staying moving, don't retire, essentially. Don't just give up and vegetate.
So if I
have purpose.
sell my furniture
Yeah.
and keep wandering around because there's no place to sit.
Actually, that's
Is
a
that gonna
great
help?
point. So in Okinawa, the way homes are furnished is usually tables are very low. You've seen those where you kind of sit on the floor to eat, and there's very little furniture. So when they recline, they literally sit on the floor, and that they have to work harder to get up. So it's not necessarily intentional. They're just getting more exercise and moving more.
See, for me, if I'm eating and I'm that close to the ground, it's just gonna be easy for me to roll over
go to
and
sleep.
just go to sleep, especially after like Thanksgiving and stuff like that.
Well, in the United States, we have our lazy boy recliners, and they are not necessarily, devices for exercise.
Did you say anything about the types of work that they do? I mean, are they farmers in these areas?
Great question. Mostly, yes, farmers.
So it's not
herders.
factory workers; they're outdoors
or office workers
I think
sitting in
it's
chairs?
herders in Sardinia and Icaria, but then outside of that, mostly farmers. Yeah, except Loma Linda, they have lives like anywhere else. I mean, they're physicians. There's actually a big medical center there. That does
College
a
of
lot of
Pharmacy
research.
there.
Yeah, there's a big research center there. So outside of them, it's mostly farming
Okay.
and herding, things like that. So in my research, I stumbled upon some folks, their stories anyway, not the actual people, that live to be extremely old. So we're talking 150 people. No.
Oh.
150 people to 600 people in the entire world live to be over 110. Okay. So that's a very small number. These people have lived even much older than that. So the oldest person verified lived to be 122 years and 164 days old.
Wow.
That is old. And her name was Jean Calment. She was a French woman. She married at 21 and was moderately wealthy. So her husband owned a department store. And she was a homemaker. She had one child. That child, though, passed away at the age of 36. So Jean had to help raise her grandson. So I'm giving all of this information because I think all of these factors contributed to her life. So at an advanced age, she was kind of forced into taking care of her grandson. The grandson lived with his father, but in a neighboring apartment. but she was tasked with basically raising her grandson. In 1942, her husband died, and then her grandson and son-in-law both died in 1962 when she was 87 years old. From that age, 87, until the age of 110, she lived by herself, unaided. She only moved into a nursing home in I don't have the year, but at the age of 110, because there was an extremely cold winter that year in France, and her pipes froze and she got frostbite. She actually never had heat in her home before that.
So doing the quick math, that would have been 1985.
Yeah, 1985. So then she moved into a nursing home, and some of her habits, believe it or not, she smoked a cigarette after every meal, a single cigarette after each meal, and followed really no particular diet. She was fond of sweets. She liked chocolate. She ate red meat. She did ride her bicycle daily until at least 100 years old. Every day she woke up at 6:45 in the morning and prayed. And then after that, she did a gymnastics type exercise. It was actually described by the nursing home staff while seated in her chair. So keeping that movement going. She had coffee every morning, and she ate a dessert with every meal. She drank a small amount of port wine after dinner and took a nap every afternoon. Some who knew her stated that she never appeared angry or upset. So her stress level apparently was low. At 115 years old, she broke her hip and was confined to a wheelchair until her death, but was mentally sharp up until her death at 122 years old. She was 4 feet 6 inches tall, short, and was positive for that HLA-DR1 gene expression. So a lot of people could look at this and say, she smoked and drank and did what she wanted, and she lived to be 122. You could also say, think about how much longer she might have lived if she didn't. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. And, but she didn't do it to excess, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's all about
She
balance.
smoked one
Moderation.
cigarette, yeah. And
Drank a little bit of port.
So maybe moderation is a key there instead of the supersize all you can eat mentality.
Yep. Never appeared angry or upset is another kind of thing that comes to the top in these stories.
Just like me.
Yeah. Sarah Naus was actually someone from the United States, the oldest verified American. I want to say she's maybe the second or third oldest person ever. She lived from 1880 to 1999, 119 years old. She was from Pennsylvania, married at the age of 21, and she had a daughter who lived to be 101 years old. So genetic component, definitely. So she was a homemaker as well, enjoyed knitting, crocheting, sewing, lived independently until age 111. She had a fondness for sweets and hated vegetables, but she was not obese, did not smoke. The nursing home staff that said that she was the nicest person there, and none of her relatives could ever recall a time when she scolded anyone or appeared stressed. So again, that kind of able to deal with stress personality, not to excess, kept moving, kept doing things.
Sounds like stress is a really big factor.
Could be.
Piss off.
Could be. Could be. I have two more. Do we have time for two more, Andrew?
Yeah,
Good.
definitely.
So Christian Mortensen, aged 115, lived to be 115 years old, also died in 1998. There's we lost a lot of our very old folks right in that same time period. He was a Danish-born male who immigrated to the U.S. and eventually settled in California. He's considered the second oldest male ever. He was divorced, had no children. He was a vegetarian, did not drink alcohol, drank only boiled water, and had an occasional cigar. On his 115th birthday, Mortensen gave his advice for a long life. Friends, a good cigar, drinking lots of good water, no alcohol, staying positive, and lots of singing will keep you alive for a long time. So I actually tried to research more into this boiled water thing, but he held this belief that water was essentially could have contaminants in it, could have bacteria in it. So he felt safer when he drank boiled water. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But it wasn't distilled, right? So it
was just boiled.
wouldn't necessarily kill
It'd kill bacteria.
Yeah, but it wouldn't.
It wouldn't take out like heavy
Contaminants,
metals
no.
and other kind of
or other type
nonsense.
nitrates and
No, actually, it could
Stuff like that.
concentrate them, actually. But
right.
yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm going to start boiling my water by any means, but he did. Worked for him. Last one, this guy named Walter Bruning lived to be 114. He's the oldest verified American-born male. He was married but had no children. He ate only breakfast and lunch and only snacked on fruit for dinner. So good diet. The fact that he was married but didn't have children, may contribute a little bit less stress overall in his life. Maybe, I don't know. He did calisthenics daily until his death, so he kept moving. But he was a lifelong cigar smoker. And in an interview at age 110, said in an interview at age 110 that he quit for a time in 1999 at 103 because they had become too expensive. However, at 108, he started smoking again because he got some gifts from friends. But he retained a sharp memory. And for an example, at the end of his life, he could still remember his grandfather talking about his experience in the American Civil War. And he remembered that he got his first haircut on the day that William McKinley was shot. Unbelievable. So on his 112th birthday in 2008, he said his secret to a long life is being active. If you keep your mind busy and you keep your body busy, you're going to be around for a long time. So I think, from a few of these case reports and looking at some research, a few things kind of come to the top. Diet is huge. Genetics are huge. Dealing with stress is good. Not the absence of stress.
I deal with stress.
You dealing with stress in a positive way.
Oh, I thought I deal with stress and I cause lots of stress.
Limiting your risk factors, so don't drink, smoke, and that kind of stuff. And then strong social connections and staying active. So there's a lot of factors. I think if you put all of those in play, you might make it to your 105th birthday.
Can I mention one interesting show that was on the Disney Plus? Have you heard of Limitless with Chris Hemsworth?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so basically he's on an epic mission to discover how to live better for longer. And he meets with experts, does crazy things like swimming in very cold water over a number of episodes. So it's interesting to see someone trying to live longer.
Yeah. But it comes down to quality too. I mean, if someone gave me the option to live to 150, but I had to be in a bubble, I probably wouldn't do it.
Drink boiled water.
I would put you in a bubble in a heartbeat.
Oh, I would put you in one as well. So, all right. On that note, let's go out and get some unprocessed food.
Stay stress free.
Try to stay stress free. Get some exercise.
Sing some happy songs.
Go to church.
Exercise.
And with our families.
Well, that's going to cause stress.
I'm going to need tomorrow off.
Yeah.
All right. See ya. Thanks for stopping by the Health Deli to sample some of our wares. We're open 24/7 on Facebook and Twitter at The Health Deli, or visit thehealthdeli.com to send us a question or find any of our locations. Please come again. We will be regularly stocking the shelves with fresh content and new wellness specials. As always, we want to give a special thank you to Andrew Tingley and the crew at Ferris State University's Television and Digital Media Production Program. Until next time, so long from the Health Deli, where the topics are tasty, the takes are fresh, and the discussion is free.